gavel us in for the work session. Welcome, and I will turn it over to staff.
Awesome. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Welcome to today's afternoon work session. We have with us staff from the Office of Strategy and Innovation to give us an update on the city's strategic plan, and I will turn it over to Heather McDougall.
Yes, good afternoon. Great to see everybody. I'm Heather McDougall. I'm the head of the Office of Strategy and Innovation, and I have with me Christina Leos. She is our Strategy and Impact Manager. We're a familiar crew to you. Next week we'll have something a little bit more lively and interactive, but we wanted to give you some background knowledge just to set the tone, and for those that are joining kind of the strategic plan for the first time, to give you that background information. So I will turn it over to Christina.
Good afternoon, Council. I know we're having some slides technical difficulties, so I'll stall for a minute. Hello, good to see everyone. Happy Tuesday. So like Heather said, we just want to give some context for the strategic plan. Thank you, Luke. And make sure that we are all aligned on how we got here, kind of where we are, and then that way we can have a deeper discussion at the retreat on setting priorities for that next strategic plan that's due to come online next fiscal year. So we're going to start by sharing a quick overview of the strategic plan and our organizational context. We are going to review the results of our strategic plan evaluation. We'll share some high-level results of our resident engagement to inform priorities for that next plan, and then we'll wrap with a timeline and some action items as we look ahead to that council retreat. All right, so the strategic plan. This is a formal plan that is adopted by City Council that translates your vision for the city and your goals into actionable strategy that can be implemented over 3 to 4 years. This plan guides our organization's focus, our work, our resources, and importantly, we assign cross-departmental teams of staff to implement each of the initiatives in the plan. So unlike strategic planning at other organizations where it's kind of a static document, it's a living, breathing framework for us that is being acted out at the city every single day. So that is very special about how we do strategic planning, and want to make sure that you all knew that. So if we look at all of the city's strategic planning processes, the strategic plan fits right in the middle. So it's really that bridge from long-term vision into that short-term action that we carry out every day. Our current plan has 6 key focus areas. These should not be a surprise. Arts and cultural resources, economic development and innovation, growth and natural resources, organizational excellence, safe, vibrant, and healthy community, and transportation and transit. So within each of our key focus areas, we have objectives. And these objectives are meant to be the 2 to 3 priorities for each of the key focus areas, representing all that full range of services that we offer to residents. And then our initiatives are those specific projects that help to advance each priority area. So you'll hear us talking about priorities both today and at the retreat, and so we just wanted to be clear kind of how that fits into the overall strategic plan structure. Okay, so I won't be discussing any specific initiatives from the current plan today, but if you are interested, we have a report available online that details our progress over the last fiscal year. We do this every year annually, so you can look on our website and search strategic plan to find that. Okay, so I want to shift gears a bit to our organizational context. So since the launch of that very first strategic plan in FY16, this has been a tool to help direct action and align us to our committed priorities, and then also has evolved a bit over time to meet our city's changing needs. So during this 10-year period, we all know our city has grown quite a bit. Our challenges have become more complex. So the next plan really should reflect this organizational maturity and also the need for new approaches in order to help us achieve those goals we've set out for the city. Now, another important thing that happened during that time was that the Office of Strategy and Innovation was established. So we have been hard at work building partnerships, helping to bring new and innovative projects online for the city, and making sure that all of our work is grounded in this human-centered perspective on government service delivery. So this is also, we're very excited, this will be the first plan that OSI gets to develop, launch, and implement from start to finish. So go City of Raleigh. Okay, so to start our work, we conducted an evaluation of the current strategic plan to help us understand what is currently working well and what are some of those opportunities for enhancements. This was a 6-month process that involved over 250 staff and expert voices to help us really dig into this. We did a lot of work, including staff surveys and interviews. We captured feedback from executive management, departmental leaders, and also outside experts in strategic planning. And what we learned was there are lots of things that are working well. I'll name a couple of those. Our cross-departmental teams of staff are very successful, really helps us take effective action on our work. That is one of several things that we do plan to keep, but we also learned that there are some areas for improvements. So we need to do a better job of prioritizing initiatives that are actually within the city's purview and influence to act on. Keeping our initiatives more actionable and focused so that staff are clear on what it is we're trying to do and accomplish. Better use of data and reporting, and also tighter alignment to the budgeting process so that we have the proper resources to actually implement the work of the strategic plan. So actually, OSI has already started to implement some of the changes that we see here. So you'll see that reflected in the process as we move forward to get the full plan presented before you all and adopted. Okay, so then we moved on to phase 2, which is this rigorous engagement process to make sure that the priorities we bring to you all for the strategic plan are really grounded in what the community needs. And we used a multi-step process for this. The first step was that we reviewed the 2022 community survey data. So this is a survey that it's administered to a representative sample of Raleigh residents to measure their satisfaction with our service delivery. We used this data to identify broad priority areas where the services are important to residents and we see there's an opportunity where we could do better. We took those priorities and turned them into resident surveys so that we could get more targeted feedback on specific service needs. We worked with staff internally to do a subject matter expert review of that feedback, help us better understand constraints, opportunities, capacity. And then we did a series of focus groups where we could explore specific stories and experiences for residents impacted in each of these service areas. So in total, we heard from over 350 residents, 45 staff members across 22 departments, and then also, that's drawing also on the over 1,000 respondents to our community survey in 2022. So we really feel, this reflects input from hundreds of residents and staff, and we feel like it's given us a good sense of what are those needs that people have at the moment. So we're going to have a deeper discussion around what we learned from residents at the council retreat, but we wanted to give you just a high-level preview of what those themes are today to get your brain to kind of digest that between now and then. So for arts and cultural resources, we heard that some residents face barriers to accessing the programs that we offer them, specifically people who live outside of the downtown core. We also heard that some have limited awareness of the programs that we do offer. Parks does a great job of offering a wide range of programs, but some residents are just not aware of those. And we also heard that there are limited affordable spaces for artists to be able to put on arts and cultural programming. Within economic development and innovation, we heard there is a lack of workforce opportunities, specifically for vulnerable populations who are most in need of support. There is a sense of fragmented support for entrepreneurs and an opportunity for better coordination on behalf of the city. And the final challenge we heard here was just noting the complex processes for getting business support from the city and also from going through the contracting process if we are awarding money for any type of services or grants to businesses. For growth in natural resources, we heard a desire for more curbside services, and we also heard about confusion regarding recycling guidelines. Some residents have limited access to climate resilience programs. And then, of course, we heard residents talk about limited, affordable, and connected housing options. Within organizational excellence, one challenge that we heard was about inconsistent service standards and process inefficiencies that are impacting service delivery. We also learned about fragmented customer service systems and outdated policies and limited staff training that are also kind of impacting how residents receive services. For safe, vibrant, healthy community, residents noted an over-reliance on traditional policing, gaps in police community trust, and also limited community building efforts that impact their sense of safety more broadly in the community. And finally, for transportation and transit, we heard about unreliable and inconsistent transit services, gaps in pedestrian and cyclist infrastructure to keep people safe if you are not in a vehicle, and then limited investments in clean energy transportation impacting the ways that people choose or can move about the city. So many of these themes are not new. However, we did uncover some specific resident stories and experiences that we want to highlight for you further at the retreat. And we hope that this demonstrates this process gave us kind of a clear and data-driven understanding for a starting point about the conversation that we'll have at the retreat for the priorities that we might consider, that you all might consider for the next strategic plan. And so we look forward to taking a deeper dive into this at that time. So sorry to leave you hanging here with not too much more detail here. But the final thing I'll share is that we are in the midst of conducting the 2024 community survey. So our team worked to refresh the survey questions that go out to ensure that they are clear, specific, and actionable for our staff. And then this is currently being administered by our consultant, ETC. So we hope to have this data in hand to help shape the initiatives that will go into the strategic plan, and we expect that data collection to be complete next month. So, now to wrap us up, I will hand it back to Heather.
And I really just want to thank the OSI team. This was a tremendous amount of work that they did, and really other cities are not doing this type of deep dive. So what's up for next week? Again, we're leaving you with a bit of a cliffhanger. You have in front of you your priorities, and I noticed that several of you were looking at these and saying, where did these come from? So these are from your websites. You have some homework for our activity next week. So if by Friday, if you could just review your priorities, we'll send you out this in a digital format, and you can just let us know, yes, this is correct. These are the priorities that we would like to be, working with at the retreat, or if there's a different change that you would like to make. So that is your homework for next week. Yep, they are not working, but. Yep, that's okay. All right, and so basically the next steps from here, we do have a little bit of a tight timeline. So basically for this, thank you very much. So for January, this is the time in which we'll come together at the retreat, and we'll go over your priorities, and we'll help to align those with the objectives. Then we see in February, we will get back the results from the community survey, and that'll give us some additional information to inform the objectives. And then in March and April, the staff will come together, and they will come to determine some of those initiatives. And just as a refresher, the initiatives are those very actionable-oriented steps that will help us to achieve the objectives. And then we'll come back to you in May and June, and you will have that formal review of the strategic plan for your approval. And then it'll launch in July. So we do have a tight timeframe on this, but we look forward to coming back next week at the retreat, talking to you a little bit more about these residents' voices and some of their areas that they would like to see in the plan. And this will give us a little bit more of an interactive session to discuss this. So we'll take any questions that you have right now. Yes.
Thank you for the information. For the retreat, and we have information provided on Go Raleigh's. Every month they do a report on services and what's on time, and it tracks it over a period of time. Can we have that information in order for the retreat? Because I'm looking at this first point on transit. I'm probably going to ask more questions about, can you explain it? Because the way it's worded, I'm not sure what they're talking about.
Certainly, we can get that
And they
from
may not be talking
transportation.
about Go Raleigh at all. It may be something else.
Absolutely.
So
Great.
it'd be
Thank you.
helpful.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this and setting us up for what's to come. I'm curious on the strategic plan. When I'm reading it, I see how progress is measured. Is that available somewhere, the data that's behind that, so that we could get a sense of where we've been?
Yeah.
Is that data collected in one place, related back to the strategic plan?
So we do have the report. So there's the annual report that is on the website that you can go to. What will be different for this upcoming plan is we have a consultant who's going to be working with us to better integrate actually those performance measurements. So that'll allow us for the next plan to actually have like a dashboard and to be able to have a little bit tighter of a tie with that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. There were 2 items for measuring progress that I didn't see, but they could be in there. I was thinking of vacancy rates, as well as some way to measure whether we're providing competitive compensation and benefit packages.
Absolutely. We can look into that as well.
Yeah, that would be within organizational excellence, I think.
Great.
Just have a question as the process unfolds. One of the earlier slides, you showed the series of plans, and just want to understand how the strategic plan is aligned with department plans, with long-range plans. Are those aligned to fold into one another? Is this now new work for staff? I just want to understand, you have your long-range plan, you have a department plan, and then you have a strategic plan, and just want to see where those lined up, where there are conflicts. So that'd be very helpful to me as the process unfolds.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as you know, the comprehensive plan, that work is being undertaken right now. You can think of the strategic plan as this moment in time. We have a 3-year window. How do we want to best utilize our assets and our staff to drive forward some new initiatives, something maybe that we haven't done before, or again, in this moment in time, we feel we really need to focus on this. So the strategic plan, again, is that shorter window. It does then inform business plans, and it informs budget as well. So when departments submit their supplemental requests, they're often asked, how does this tie back to the strategic plan? So they do all tie together. But one important thing we want to really emphasize, the strategic plan, again, will be hopefully a bit smaller this time, because we do really need to think about, again, this moment in time, where we're going to focus our energy. But that doesn't mean that the other departments, the work they do still may advance forward other priorities. So we've got a staff of 5,000 people doing the work, but again, this moment in time.
And so just by way of an example, and I'm sure what you just responded to will be the same. I'll just say hypothetically, 2 issues council established a priority: tree canopy and sidewalks. We know that Public Works is very focused and planning, I'm sure, on building out bicycle facilities and a pedestrian network, of seeing whether a bond's going to roll out to start building sidewalks, and how does that strategic plan and the other plans align. The other one is tree canopy. I'm sure parks and other departments are looking very heavily at that. There's on the ordinance side, but then there are street trees. So as we have this conversation that's prioritized, want to know how that all just aligns and fits together. So I'm not saying we're going to recommend that. Those are just 2 examples, so I understand how they all fit together.
Yes, thank you for that question. I can share a little more about what we're doing to work on all of those pieces. We are closely collaborating with the comp plan team. They're a little bit ahead of us. We're at the tail end of the current comp plan, so this plan will go into effect before that new comp plan goes in. We might be not perfectly aligned this time, but by the 2 plans from now, we will be able to closely follow behind that comp plan. Similarly, we are working with our friends in Budget and Management Services who are overseeing the department budget, the business plans. And so we have coordinated so that our plan will go into effect first. They will follow, so then they can see what are the priorities under the strategic plan, and they can work with departments on aligning that themselves. I want to also reiterate what Heather said, that we're looking at where we want to be intentional about what are the initiatives that make sense to be in the strategic plan. So these are projects that would really benefit from cross-departmental support. They would benefit from that additional attention from the OSI team and also departmental leadership. Some things are strictly operational. If solid waste needs to, pick up trash, they're pretty good at doing that. They don't need a cross-departmental team, to kind of carry that out. But other things, kind of thinking about new initiatives, thinking about cross-functional things, those are the types of things that we might bring forward as recommended initiatives. But of course, all of that is in alignment with those priorities that you all ultimately decide should go into the plan.
Thank you so much. I am just wanting some clarification. So in January, it says council finalizes priorities, but our community survey results don't come back until February. So I'm wondering where in this timeline are we able to incorporate some of the things that the community feedback survey is going to bring back to us?
We have seen consistency over the last several community surveys. So there are kind of those overarching buckets. A lot of them do revolve around transportation, sustainability, growth, housing. So we probably won't see a drastic change in it, but there is certainly the opportunity that if there is new information presented in the survey, that we can come back to those objectives. But given our need to go ahead and get this up and running by July, we do want to make sure that we have had that opportunity to talk with you about your priorities and how those could align with the objectives. But this is iterative, so there is that opportunity to make adjustments.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all, for this. I love the idea of having a dashboard. I think the more we can make things transparent and easily accessible to our residents, the easier it is to tell our story, which we know is a phrase we've used over and over again for the past several years. I would just, and it's probably not a note for now, it's probably just a note to file away in the bank and will be applicable in July. But I would just say, as we think about building that dashboard, making sure whatever is shown is very much in plain English, very clear and easy to understand. And I think sometimes we trip over our own feet with some of the phrasing. And so just as it should just say % of buses running on time, % of trash getting picked up on time, very quick and easily digestible to a resident who might just be scanning our page for a few seconds.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I totally forgot to ask my second question. And I think it kind of talks about what Councilor Harrison was referencing, but I'm just going to re-ask it. As we go into this next one, is there a way to get a kind of checklist on the last strategic plan so I see what were the initiatives and did we accomplish them? And that way there's a starting point and there's a clear communication to the residents hey, look, we did this is really cheering us on, and that storytelling that we've been talking about. How can we applaud staff for the work that's been done and then say, hey, these are left hanging, maybe that can go and fit into a bucket over here. So maybe if we can have that, it'll better help illustrate that to the community.
Absolutely, and so we do have that annual report is available, but we can find out, we can probably give maybe a synopsis or something.
Love that question and that point, because we're in the process of compiling the final cumulative report from staff, and we're also hoping to capture beyond just what did you do in the last year. We want to look at, okay, Help us understand the impact of your work, or what have you seen, what are you proud of, what have you learned. We'll use some of that to shape the initiatives and think about capacity and feasibility. But then also, yes, very much want to be able to share for transparency and engagement with residents what did happen over the last 5 years. So that is in progress. Sometime later this spring, we'll have that available for the public.
Great, thank you.
And we are hoping to have a big launch. We probably will not do that over the summer because we know people are on vacations, but we're looking for the fall to do some type of community launch of the new strategic plan. We have tremendous work to be celebrated, and we definitely want to make sure that more residents know about the strategic plan and that they see themselves in that plan as well.
So I really appreciated the feedback and the pre-work you did, the feedback on the being more aligned, being more tangible, more data-driven metrics, I think builds on what Councilor Patton was saying. But just so to be clear, then so next week, we're going to finalize priorities. So does that mean this document is a starting point, but we might decide arts and cultural resources, as an example, is just not going to be one of our priorities. And then we're going to rename these priority buckets, right? So all this is on the table to change, which would mean maybe our committee structure at the council would change. And then we're going to update within those new buckets what we think the biggest priorities for the next 3 to 4 years are.
So our KFAs have remained consistent over the last several strategic plans. They have provided kind of those overarching themes that allow us to then work with the objectives. So our plan is to primarily operate in the objective level. Okay. If there is a KFA that you feel very strongly needs to make some adjustments, that could be up for discussion. But there is also a benefit of having the consistency over the last plans so that we can also see progress across them.
Well, let me build on this because I've heard feedback when I was coming on board. Like we all know, housing is the number one issue everybody's talking about. And I would much prefer to have, like, potentially, instead of saying growth and natural resources, or say, could we just say we're going to have a housing committee? And there's so many tentacles that feed into building housing and increasing housing in this community, but that is a much more tangible, actionable, measurable than this, which doesn't mean that much to people, and this could be confusing. The other feedback I've heard is things like safe, vibrant, healthy community. Law enforcement, public safety, I do see the feedback knowing there is a very broad public safety ecosystem out there that goes way beyond police. However, like this language may not be what is really speaking to citizens or what we're hearing when we're out in the community. So to me, you would hope that potentially we could find the language that is resonating with the public instead of using language that is not, they can't relate to and they're not thinking about and isn't aligning with all the things that, that you've printed for us.
Certainly. Okay, we can put that on the agenda for discussion as well.
Did you have?
I was just going to say for Councilmember Silver and the public, KFA's key focus area.
Yes, thank you for
We're
that.
trying to
Key
get-
focus
We're
areas.
trying to get away from.
It was on there.
I know, we're trying to get away from acronyms.
Thank you for the reminder.
And then I also agree with the mayor. I think transportation and transit is very apparent what that committee does, what that key focus area does. Same thing, economic development. I do think that there may be an opportunity to tighten up or even just rename some of these other focus areas and correlating council committees to really highlight some of the consistent issues that we're seeing. And obviously we know housing and public safety are two really big issues. And I wasn't around at the time, but I know that the committees at one point were called like Law and Public Safety, Public Works, and those to me, I think, are a little bit easier for the public to digest. And so I would personally like to see, and we'll talk about this at the retreat, I'd like to see a shift back to maybe some more specific, deliberate focus areas, how they're titled. I've also always felt that growth in natural resources and safe, vibrant, healthy communities, there's a lot of, when we talk about what committee to put things in, they're so similar that if we could help delineate a bit better. And so that would be one of my goals going into the retreat.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Let me agree with both my colleagues. So as we proceed, I think that's quite clear because I was around when committees were named something differently. But as we go through this, we want the public to understand if, for example, arts and cultural resources is not identified as a priority, it doesn't mean it's not important. And I think to share with the colleagues that as we move into this, there's urgent and important versus important but not urgent. And I think we're going to be at a stage for what is urgent and important. And I do agree both public safety and affordable housing, at least what we've heard, is really floating to the top of the list as well as transportation. But I think simplifying the terms, focusing on urgent and important, not important but not urgent, would be my preference going forward as we take a look at these key focus areas, or KFAs.
Yes. Thank you. All right, wonderful. Well, we look forward to seeing you next week. As just a teaser, there will be children's laughter involved. So I will just leave you with that.
Not too much. Children's laughter.
So what,
That is the only item today?
Okay.
Yes?
wow. All right. Well,
Yeah, we start out slow, right? January, we ease you into the year, right? So we start out really slow.
all right.
I don't know if I'm going to have this update, but I went through the document and the word partnership leaps out many, many times. This is just a heads up when we get the update, how do those partnerships work? Because it seems that the city through this document, yes, there's things we're doing, but there's a very heavy reliance. Almost every section said partner with, partner, partner, partner. So just want to understand, how that is at with each department, as someone oversees how those partnerships are created. That was just one word I highlighted in almost every section.
Okay, great. And that is correct. The work that we do as a city is not in isolation. We are dependent upon the collaborations with our communities. So the strategic plan, you do see that language in there, and it many times does depend perhaps on the particular focus of that, but I would agree, and I think that is one of the strengths, is that the close partnerships that the city and the community has.
Last question, and this is meant as a compliment to the residents of the city. Very often, there's engagement, there's outreach, there's surveys. Just want to make sure, as I'm watching and getting updates, there's always several outreach efforts. Is there a point in time where there's public meetings, survey fatigue, where you're not getting maximum feedback? Because every time I get a report, public engagement, there's the budget, there's the traffic study, there's neighborhood. How do we gauge getting good feedback when some people said, this is just getting too much? We encourage engagement and feedback, but just want to know, are we strategic about how we roll out these engagement efforts and surveys? Just want to make sure we're hearing from the most, not those that are very skilled at professional public engagement folks versus hearing the broader community at large.
Absolutely, and I think that actually was one of the strengths of the work that we did. Christina can tell you a little bit more about the focus groups that we led, but we were very purposeful in the outreach to make sure that it was not, kind of the same demographic continuing to participate.
Yes, this is also a really good question and something that's tough to balance. We want engagement, and we know that there's a lot to talk about. So we tried to triangulate from a wide range of sources, including we did look at past engagement reports from other departments, so that if there was something where we feel there's been extensive work here, these questions have been asked, we don't need to ask those again. We kind of noted that and put that to the side. We also tried to use a range of modes of engagement. So surveys, we used existing data, we used new surveys, we used some in-person focus groups. So we could try to reach people in different ways, but then also we're not asking a lot of every single person that we're hearing from. We're interested, we're always happy to do engagement. We see the importance of incorporating that. To Heather's note, we also, in the spirit of human-centered design, one way we tried to be strategic with our engagement was to prioritize hearing from the people who are most impacted by those specific services that are in question, right? If we want to know about availability of programming for families, we want to talk to people who have kids, people who, have multi-generational households, whatever that is. We don't necessarily need to hear from kind of single folks, living in an apartment. All those represent different groups and needs, but we were trying to say, if we want to hear about X, let's make sure we're talking to people who are experiencing X or impacted by X.
I'm going to jump in really quick because I really think that Councilor Silver brings up a really great point in that. And I'm wondering, how is the department or the city using features like AI to reach people? People are talking about it. Whether or not you ask a survey, it's on there digitally, how they feel about X, Y, Z. And when we continually do surveys, we're looking backwards. So we're saying, oh, in this point of time behind us, but if we can do right now, which is how can AI best support finding that? And I've talked to some companies who do just that, who are out there searching for keywords and key focus groups so that you don't have to always do that survey as the only metric, as like in supplement. But how do you guys envision the capacity of AI to help?
I'm curious if you have an answer, but I'll say we, once in a while, we'll come across posts on Reddit or something that actually are talking specifically about something we're working on, and those are interesting to look at. I'm not sure we have systematically used that as a method yet, but.
Yes, as of this point, we will defer to our Chief Information Officer because I know their team is working on a policy for AI, so we will wait till they give us guidance on that.
Yes, we are trying to define a governance structure before we just let employees in the system go to make sure that we're moving strategically, and Mark can add to that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mark Wittenberg, Chief Information Officer. Yes, we've been looking at AI very pragmatically as far as coming up with policies around AI, how AI is going to be used. Most likely, the area where we'll be deploying first is going to be in our customer relationship module, which Karen Ray has been working on. We're going to be coming back probably in the next couple of months to give you an update on that particular program, how AI is going to be used. Also, we are looking at AI and Microsoft Copilot to be able to look at some of these survey results and then be able to pull that information out.
Thank you.
Yep.
We're diverging a little bit from the topic at hand, but speaking of AI, I do think our residents are already exposed to it. We all are already exposed to it. So I wonder if part of your work, perhaps it's not in the policy, but adjacent to it, is making sure that what our residents are being served by AI that they experience, when you Google something, it gives you the AI summary, making sure that that's accurate. So whatever of our content is being fed into the model is coming out the way we would want it to.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we're looking at is providing references, because we don't want AI to just provide an answer. What we want to make sure is that as part of that answer, here are the websites or the locations that we've pulled these answers from, and so that you could go to those specific sites and be able to read. So you're not just depending on the answers from artificial intelligence.
All right, before we keep going, we will conclude the public hearing and reconvene at 7.